Show me how to melt you.
Welcome back to Liquid Lunch. That's who's that? Carly and Mark? Yes, Carly and Mark. That's our music today, and we're here with Karen Lefave, sci-fi writer. Well, is this your first book?
Yes.
Yes.
My first novel.
First novel.
Mhm.
You've written nonfiction before, have
No.
you?
Well, just as part of work, doing business specifications, technical specifications, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But not fiction.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. And so you got your book here. You've actually got a
do.
copy here.
Well,
a
it's
beautiful
a
cover.
it's not quite a copy, but it's
Oh.
the prototype.
But it looks good from a
Yeah.
distance here.
So it is actually going to be
Yeah.
this size and.
Which is about, I'm looking at it, probably around 280, 320 pages, something like that.
274, yeah.
Okay.
272, yeah, it's
Whoa.
pretty close.
You know how you search for a particular page on the book? Excuse me, you don't mind, right?
It's just like Rain Man.
Yeah, you plan to just get to a page you think and you feel it and you go right on it in the first guess.
Uh-huh.
I guess that's the way I was doing it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Rain
so
Man,
it's
I'm
about
not
that, yeah.
autistic.
Well, great to have you here,
Yeah.
Karen.
Yeah, it's good to
Now,
be here.
you've got a really varied background, right? We
Mhm.
mentioned you've got an engineering degree. You've ran a
Oh, yeah.
store, a haute couture store in
Amazing.
Yorkville.
Mm-hmm.
You're a hypnotist and a personal trainer, all this stuff, and yet you've gone ahead and written a book, a sci-fi book.
It's it's an interesting progression. I've been doing a lot of different things. I guess my interests are varied, and with the haute couture business, that was a big adventure for me, and it just didn't work out. The market wasn't here. So when I closed the store, then I started to evaluate, okay, what am I going to be doing? And as I was going through and learning hypnosis and personal training and doing some reading and development courses, it just started to fall into place. Because I did write all through my life.
Mhm.
It just wasn't writing was what I was doing. It was
Right.
just an incidental.
Okay.
And people would say, oh, that's really good. And I go, okay. And just do what I do and then write. So at one point I did get an article published in fashion in a Sasson magazine. And I wrote that on haute couture. So it was essentially an article on what haute couture is all about.
I just want to step back just for a second on when you were in the fashion realm of your life. And I probably think that you can still take that with you somewhere as far as, maybe for friends designing or whatever. But was it frustrating in that you're realizing that maybe there wasn't a market for it is a nice way of saying people just are so conditioned to have very bland things or something? Or in terms of they go for this same things, they go to the movie to see a certain movie star as opposed to the story. I mean, the action flicks in the summer. I mean, it's a pattern of a lot of other things. Did it frustrate you at all, or you didn't think of it that way?
Well, the frustration was that I didn't have a name.
Uh-huh.
And at the level I was entering, it was really apparent that I needed a name.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even though I was doing the quality of a Chanel and a Christian Dior and all that stuff, people didn't recognize it.
Right.
Because they weren't familiar with that side of things. They were familiar with the names, but the I guess the more industrial versions of it.
Right.
So they were willing to pay thousands of dollars for that,
Yeah.
yet not thousands of dollars for something that is workmanship and art.
Right.
And also I was a little bit out there as far as colors and
Yeah.
and designs. It was very, very architectural,
Yeah.
very engineering-like.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Just curious, so you're kind of evaluating all your different options, and you chose to write a book. I mean, you've got the electrical engineering degree. How come you got out of electrical engineering? I'm just,
Okay. Well, I was in computers for 14 years, and after a while, I got to a point where I just wasn't feeling that I was being challenged. I wanted to go to a certain level in industry, and I felt like I had plateaued, and the whole corporate world and that. So, and my creative side was really screaming at me. It's like,
Right.
get out, do something.
Right.
So I took a year off and decided to write music. So I didn't
Oh my
publish
goodness,
anything.
music too.
Yeah, I didn't publish anything,
Yeah.
but I started writing then. I started
Yeah.
hearing music and fiddling on the piano. I'm not a pianist, but enough to
Yeah.
get the notes together and put a little demo CD. So went
Yeah.
into recording and had a band for 2 weeks and fell apart. I'm really not the front person. I really wanted to write and to be
Yeah.
behind the scenes. And
Yeah.
And after a year of taking a sabbatical, I ended up going into fashion because I really love costume.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do, is to get into film to do costume.
Yeah.
And so I thought through the haute couture route, I can build a name for myself and then get into film. So this is just a different approach.
Right.
So what's the game plan here?
The game
Is this
plan?
part of a master strategy?
It's a master strategy.
What's the master plan?
The master plan is I have a series of 10. This is the first in the series. So
Okay.
I've mapped out the plot line for the series. And from this, I'm also going to fund some water projects because I'm really big on the environment. And I'm starting to funnel my I guess the sales for this into a foundation. that I'm
So
going to
now
be
that
starting.
Harry Potter is finished with all the series, you're trying to come
Yes.
across with something
Yeah.
maybe more adult version than the kids that grow up in
Yeah.
that school. You got this, and hopefully, as I say, there'll be 10 projects, or, well, a big project, 10
yeah.
elements to this.
10 elements. Well, I'm hoping that because this is sci-fi as opposed to fantasy,
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I can bring some of those Harry Potter readers into more of a
You're right.
sci-fi. Where it's a little bit. I mean, J.K. Rowling's amazing. She writes beautifully.
Yeah.
This is a little bit more complex a story, but it's a bit more mature, not
Yeah,
for children.
but
still, yeah.
But you know, as far as I know, a lot of the buyers of the books of Harry Potter were adults. You know, busy office adults.
Yeah, I know, I bought
They don't
them.
want to go deep because they're too
Yeah.
busy in their busy lives. So they
Right.
read Salman Rushdie, and it was a smart book.
Yeah.
So you had the 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and the 44-year-olds reading, and you know, words are just symbols. So, you know, emotionally, someone can carry over from fantasy to science fiction, I think, very easily.
Well, the only difference is the science fiction is loosely based on science. I don't actually explain what
Yeah,
the science
yeah.
is. So you could think of it as fantasy as you're reading it,
That's right.
although it's loosely based on science.
Now you mentioned that you're going to start to channel some of the funds from the books into water projects and that sort of thing. And I understand that the book is about. Well, we should really talk about the title of it. It's
Okay.
Nemesine,
Nemesine.
the epoch of redress.
Of redress.
And you talk about one of the inspirations for the book was your concern for the oceans and for the water of the planet. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, for the past couple of years, friends have been sending me information on, Plastic Island and how our oceanic dead zones are causing the coral reefs to die and all that. So I've been doing some investigation in there, and it's a big thing. I mean, I can't get away from plastics myself. Everything I
Yeah.
buy has plastics. Even the organic food I buy, because I buy organic, and I'm trying as much to buy no packaging, comes in plastic.
Right.
So I'd like to get some of that book funded for replacement for that as well. Like if people who have ideas on replacing plastic with something that's more organic, that we can
But
just.
if we can mention,
you know.
if we can not be so hard on ourselves too, I'm referring to you and me, just not do less of and multiply it by billions of people on the planet, encouraging other people. I remember the comedian Bill Maher on Larry King when it was on was saying, if everyone just stopped buying those SUVs, wouldn't it be so much better with the carbon and the other problems?
Yeah.
Not exactly what you're referring to. Maybe the dead zones in the oceans are caused by other things.
The fertilizers, if
pardon
we
me?
stop eating so much food, or we stop fertilizing all this, putting into our rivers and sending it down and sending
So
the
that's how
nitrates
it's caused.
down.
I wasn't even
That's
sure
one,
myself.
Yeah, that's one cause of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There are other things. Global warming will aggravate the situation as well. So
Right.
it's all tied in.
Yeah, there's
And
so
that
much.
scraping by the fishermen, the scraping with the darn things and
anchors,
ruining the
the
coral
coral
reefs.
reefs.
Yeah, that's more of a mechanical change, right?
Yeah.
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 So
I'm really hoping to make a really big difference
Yeah.
by creating awareness, because this is set in the future on Earth,
Right.
where our oceans have died. So the setting is a virulent kind
So
of
you're talking
ecosystem.
about like that movie with Mel Gibson when it's that very dismal future. That's when he was younger, when he,
Mad Max.
Mad
Mad
Max,
Max.
or you had Kevin Costner when they're all living
Water
in a
World?
water world.
It's not the same kind of story.
Yeah.
It's set in that setting, but it's not that kind of
Right,
everybody's
exactly.
trying to rip everyone off and kill each other for these small resources. It's not kind of.
Yeah.
So
that
can you
kind of
describe
story,
for a sec what, because you've painted this world in this book. You know, what does a world look like whose oceans are dead?
Well, people are living in protected cities, so there's some protected
The
walls.
bubble or whatever it is.
Not necessarily bubble; it's invisible, but
Oh.
they are protected. So they have some sort of filter that will filter the gases coming off the oceans and stop them from being intoxicated. There are other cities that are further up in the highlands, which aren't as the protection isn't as needed because they're not near the oceans.
Right.
It's near the coastal lands where all the problems come.
Yeah.
The cities are also there's a network of cooling generators keeping the planet cool. So there's a cycle that's going on and regenerating the noxious gases into something that can be used as a coolant. So they've found a way to recycle
Yeah.
and use that. And there's other things about the tide of the planet. The planet has very high tides, so there's certain things that they have to do to make sure that the city.
So you've taken things that people are projecting somewhat. Certain scientists are projecting today. If we don't do da 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 da, this is what can happen to us. And you're taking actually real things and taking to, well, this is what. Here's the world, a fictional world that could be true, with
Yeah.
those things, those elements in.
Yeah.
So you're actually applying those elements, not just making it up.
I'm applying them and then adding my own
Of course, you have
interpretation of
to.
it. Yes,
But there is some of it,
I've
yeah.
done a lot of research on, say, weather patterns. I mean, I'm not sure if they're exact, but
Yeah.
the fog patterns and how that happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, the cities, the way the cultures are together. Of course,
Right.
there's one humanity. Everyone, after several iterations of disasters, had to pull together. So then there's that aspect of it, the politics of it. The church and the state are no longer separate.
Yeah.
Finally.
It's together. Finally.
Good.
And all the problems that causes as well. So
Yeah.
there's that aspect underlying, and then there's that spiritual aspect underneath it. So the PSI is the physical, spiritual, and intellectual fiction. It's not.
And
It's just.
Is this one area on the planet that you're using as a sample in the story, or is it the whole world together
This
here?
particular one is one city.
Okay.
And the main characters are traveling from their hometown to this city in the beginning, but it's set in that one city. The series is set across the world.
Oh, I see.
So we're just starting with this one city. The
Okay.
story develops right there.
And
what
the
city
reader-
is it?
It's called Edinburgh.
It's not a real city?
It is a real city that will be divulged later, or
Okay.
divulged later.
Okay.
I'm planning to have some dialogue going with my readers, saying, "What do you think this is?" and what do you think? Where do you think this is? And that kind of thing as the series progresses.
Let's share one of my very favorite writers today is from Japan, Murakami Haruki, and he was encouraged to finally go home and write a novel when he was watching a baseball game. Someone hit a grand slam home run in Tokyo, and it just flashed in his and went down, wrote his thing. Someone told me, a 23-year-old told me that she's read all his books, and by the time you read all his books, there's certain little mystery things that only tie together like the puzzle until you read them all. That's
Yeah,
you?
that's what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm hoping I can pull that off, but
Yeah.
that's how I've written this. So there are certain sections that seem a little vague.
Yeah.
Or if you read it now and then you read book number 4 and you go back to read it, then you might say read it differently.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the attempt. We
Yeah.
will see. We'll see how it
Now,
goes. Yeah.
so have you written any of the other ones yet, or parts of any of the other of the series?
Or maybe
I
just
have
an outline.
I have scenes where I've moved things around. I have the outlines and what the storyline will be in each. What's going to be, because it's a one big story that has to flow and change. So I know who the characters are, the main characters, how they're going to change throughout the story till story number 10. So it's laid out. And as I was writing this, I also made sure that, okay, how is this going to affect the other? So I have files and files of notes where as I write, I put that note down and make sure it coincides with what the big picture is.
Steve, not that I'm a fan of Stephen King, but he is a good writer, and he's read all the great writers. And he had a car accident, and he thought, okay, I'll write a book to give some people some advice on writing. And basically was like, don't follow too many rules on writing, just write
I bought
it.
his book and read it.
Oh, you did? But wasn't there a section in that where he says, don't be too tight with your outline for the novel. I'm just saying that because he was encouraging you want to write it like you're reading it for the first time yourself. And you have a scene, things happen, and react, and be welcoming, changing things as they go. And I think you were hinting, you got a sort of thing outlined, but you got things, and you know where you can keep track, and you got your notes and files, but you can change things as they develop.
It was very interesting because as an engineer and an analytical, I like to have everything all set out. So I set out my outline, and at one point I said I have to start writing. So I started writing, and as I was writing, things would come, and that weren't in the outline, and they would just come, and I went, okay, let's go for it.
That's true.
And they just happened to fit because I knew the stories, what I wanted. They would just come when I was in that zone, and then I go, oh, this is okay, I'll use that, and then I'd throw out a scene and put it somewhere else. That won't go.
Energy within us or something that's so powerful that comes out, and you got to welcome it, I think.
Yeah, what is that? I mean, some people say it's almost like you channeling.
A channeling.
And I find the same thing writing music.
Oh,
Yes.
you write music, Hugh. Oh.
Yes. But I find that often what you get at the end is you look back and you go, wow, I couldn't have done all that. I must have had some help along the way.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think that is?
Oh, I think we're tapping into our the universe
Yeah.
there. So we're tapping into something.
Yeah.
I don't take credit for my creativity. It comes, and I know
Yeah.
it comes early in the morning, and certain times when I'm really, and it just comes. I get things and they pop. So
Yeah.
what I do is I just write them down right away because they'll just leave.
It's
I can't
it's
explain
allowing
that.
them in. A lot of us, the problem with a lot of people out there here in big cities, Toronto for sure, is we're so tight. We don't allow this beautiful stuff to channel into us. And so it's good that you're doing that.
Yeah.
You're welcoming this when you're writing.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting because you say, well, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And by not owning it, it's great because then
Yeah.
you don't want to get as attached to the criticism of
Right.
it as well. Like, it's a stretch, but once you get used to that, it's cool.
So we get a little bit of help as artists
Yeah.
in the creative process a little bit. But what about what about the earth itself and the environment and the oceans? You know, are you? We're obviously facing some sort of some challenges around all that. Do you think there's help for that as well? Beyond us getting some help on the personal level, is there help for the world, for the global environment?
If we're open to ideas and getting out of our own heads, the answers will come to us. But I think we do have to move fast. That's just my opinion. I think we're going to reach a tipping point that's going to be pretty scary. So right now, that's just my personal opinion. We're a bit in denial that this is not affecting the world. But we live in a bubble, and the bubble's only so big.
Yeah.
And we're filling it up with junk. So something's gonna happen.
You just walk in the malls. It is guys that almost run me over in these overly gigantic cars, and you just say, well, why are you riding that in the first place? And they just, what are you talking about? This
They
is all
shouldn't be
phony.
driving
It's all
cars
nothing.
in the mall.
That's right, right in the mall. I meant the parking. Excuse me, I didn't go into details. But thanks for that clarification. Yeah, I mean, I just, oh man, I mean, right next door, there's people it's like we're right next to people. I feel more connected to people from other countries. I never met them before. They hardly speak English. And let's say I'm visiting in another country, but we're just zoned into the same thing so well. And the person that is in the same city all their lives they're so strangers to me. They're just so different. And one of them is just total denial of things that are dangerous to the environment. It just blows my mind.
It's because we don't see it. It gets pushed out. I mean, all the water goes into this one area, Plastic Island. Everything goes down there, so we don't see it.
Yeah.
So it all ends up in one little spot of the world, and they think, but it's all connected. So eventually, it comes back.
Interdependency. They don't realize this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you talk? When you say Plastic Island? Is that big thing in the middle of the Pacific where all the plastic has accumulated?
Yeah, it accumulates, and it's in the water, and all these little flakes look like fish food. And the fish are they're getting confused because it looks like plankton or something. And they've taken samples of the water where they can see that there's so much plastic in there. It actually looks like it's just food. it's pretty disgusting actually.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then we eat that, and it passes up the food chain. So
Sounds pretty horrible.
yeah,
It looks like we're going to have you back to talk about all that other stuff.
the other stuff.
Well, are you
Yes.
hopeful, Karen, or are you just hoping that this book might be able to have some sort of effect and raise awareness?
Well, I'm hopeful because there are more people who are starting to talk, and there's going to be a point where we're going to be a big enough voice that we're going to be the tipping point as well. Like it's that energy of mind that's going to kind of tip us over, and then we'll do something about it.
But what will we do?
I don't know
It's
what we will do.
It's one thing to raise awareness. It's another thing to actually, now that you're aware, do something, right? But what
Yeah.
can we do?
What can we do? Well, we can essentially don't drive in more SUVs. We can not buy things that are sold in plastic and look for alternatives. We can do that. But to do that, we have to go against the grain and the big money behind all of that as well.
I think
So
also as an
it's just us as
sorry.
consumers. Sorry, I mean it's
Oh,
us
no.
who's going to have to talk
Yeah.
as opposed to let the businesses.
What do you think about this? Also, it's called that little pep talk thing, more than a pep talk to get people aware.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed there's even in Ontario a version of this, but Burning Man Festival in the Salt Flats, that once a year that people get together,
Mm-hmm.
and they create this artificial town. Have you heard of that?
It's called
Burning Man Festival.
Burning Man Festival.
Oh well, I'll talk to you after
Okay,
the
okay,
show.
sure,
But it's
yeah.
quite a great where people get together with like-minded, like what you're talking about.
Okay.
And they create. They have to bring their own water. They have to bring their own things in a total flat desert thing, and have this temporary festival for 4 days.
Festival.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hugh, you've heard of it too.
I know.
Yeah.
And of course, then there's the Burning Book
Is it?
Festival, right?
Oh,
You
we
bring
wouldn't
your
want
books and
that.
No.
toss them
No,
on
no,
the
no.
fire.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, and now you've got an opening coming up, right?
Yeah.
You've got you're gonna a book launch coming
I
up
have a book
next
launch
week.
next week at the Gladstone Hotel. It's Wednesday the 21st.
Well, beautiful venue. Very beautiful venue.
Yeah.
Beautiful place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really nice. So we'll
No.
be in the ballroom, expecting
Yeah.
150 people.
Yeah.
And also have a goal by November 4th to sell 3,000 copies, so I can start the funding, like 3,000 or more.
Caviar
copies.
and shrimp and
Not
whatever?
for no, no. It won't be caviar and shrimp. No seafood.
Whale meat.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
little snippets and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whale meat. Okay,
Wonderful.
so what time does that start on the
6:30.
21st? 6:30. Yeah.
p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And there'll be a reading. There'll be some munchies, some music, and book
Nice.
signing, and
Nice.
yeah.
That's going to be a
so
great thing.
It will.
Now, so now this is your first sci-fi book,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Do you have any favorite sci-fi writers that, for
I
all the
have-
sci-fi people out there, because there's
Oh,
people that
okay.
they just follow the whole sci-fi thing.
Uh-huh.
They read Locus magazine.
Okay.
Do you subscribe to Locus?
Well, interestingly enough, I watch sci-fi movies, but I don't read sci-fi.
Oh, okay.
I read more self-development, spiritual, universe time, new age, that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
all reading for learning, like languages and marketing. But for the movies I will watch. So, okay, I like my favorite series would be Firefly. Only real sci-fi. Firefly people will know what that is. I love the Star Wars series.
Of course.
I like the other ones that are sci-fi. Well, the Star Wars. There's a whole series of that. There's it's not coming to me.
Which one?
SGI
Describe it.
SGI
Oh, yeah.
series.
Now, do you ever imagine this book being turned into a movie
Oh,
or a
yes.
series?
A movie. Movies,
Yeah.
yes.
10 movies.
And movies, yes.
Yeah.
I'm writing the screenplay, and the fall will be my next part is to get this into movies. Yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, we're looking forward to
Mhm.
that, and we're looking forward to the opening next Wednesday.
Mhm.
How can people? Do they need to get tickets or?
Well, they can go online.
yeah?
They can go to www.nemesine.com. So that's NEMECENE.com, and they can register there. And that's how they can do that.
So they can register for the opening there. Can
Yeah.
they also order a book
They
there?
can order a book online as well. It will get shipped to them.
Okay,
So
great.
they'll pre-order because it's going to be ready in a couple of days. So I'm going to
Yeah.
get the books in a couple of
Yeah.
days.
Okay, great.
So, yeah.
Well, listen, we look forward to seeing you there next Wednesday. So
All right.
congratulations on having
Thank
the
you very
book
much.
written.
Well, thank you for having
And
And we look forward to having you on before Faris Zakaria grabs you on CNN and George Nuri on Coast to Coast, et cetera, et
me.
cetera.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
okay. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you so much. Thanks you. Thanks, Daniel.
Karen Lefave, Nemesine, the epoch of redress. Okay, Dan, let's take a little break, and
Yeah.
we're going to come back with Baman Yazdanfar, leader of the Canadians' Choice Party. We'll be right back.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comes to you, I'm out of words. When it comes to me, I'm never heard. This is just wearing me down. I hate the shit you spread around. I can't say another thing to get us out of the way.
Hi, I'm Karen Lefave, author of the compelling, exciting, and thrilling first novel of a new 10-novel sci-fi series called Nemesine, The Epoch of Redress, a futuristic view of life on Earth after massive environmental changes. Please join me September 21st at the Gladstone Hotel in Toronto for the launch. Register or pre-order a copy at nemesine.com. That's NEMECENE. A minimum of 10% of all profits for the entire series are funding global water projects. It all starts here.